Hi, welcome to Dreamsical Designs by Danielle. In this video, I show you how to design and sew your very own skirt overlay. It comes together pretty easily. You have your solid fabric for the waistband that's simply just a rectangle, and you have your sheer fabric for the skirt that is also just one big rectangle gathered into the waistband. Let's get started. This is the fabric that I'll be using for my skirt overlay or overskirt. I'm using satin fabric for the waistband and organza fabric for the skirt. Since the design is just two different rectangles, no pattern is needed. We can skip directly to the cutting stage where we will measure and then cut. The skirt overlay waistband length is your waist circumference plus an additional 48 inches. If you don't want the ribbon portion to be as long, you can shorten this length and vice versa if you want to extend it. The width is 3 inches, which includes a 0.5-inch seam allowance. Using a large rectangular ruler, mark these measurements on your fabric with a fabric marker or chalk. You can also measure then cut directly without making any marks. Cut with a rotary cutter or scissors. Make a notch at the center of the waistband on the top and bottom. The skirt length is equal to your desired length plus a 1-inch hem. I use the measurement from my waistline to my ankles. You can make it longer or shorter. I use the entire width of the fabric, and my fabric is 58 inches wide. I found it easier to first fold along the width of the fabric and clipping it in place before measuring and cutting. Once folded, use a long ruler or tape measure to mark the length of the fabric. Cut the fabric using a rotary cutter or scissors. Make a notch at the center of the skirt at the top. I'm using a rolled hem foot for my organza fabric. It makes sewing a long hem faster. However, if you don't have one, you can sew the hem manually. It'll just take a little longer. Starting with the size of the skirt, fold the edge in by 0.5 inch and again at 0.5 inch. Sew a few stitches to hold things in place. Lift up the presser foot and roll the hem onto the sewing foot loop, then begin to stitch it in place. Make sure that the hem is prepped prior to feeding it into the foot loop and that it is flush against the left part of the inside loop, such that the needle hits at the fabric edge when it's sewn. Using a rolled hem foot takes practice and finessing the fabric correctly. The foot is designed such that the needle hits at the very edge of the fabric, so if you're not careful, you'll end up not sewing on the hem. If that happens, readjust and continue sewing. Once finished, repeat this process for the other skirt side and then the bottom. This is what the finished hem should look like. Press the hems flat. Sew in 2 basting stitches of length 5 within the seam allowance from end to end. The first basting stitch will be at a normal tension. Prior to the second basting stitch, increase the tension to a 6 or higher, which should auto-gather the fabric for you. Remember to leave long tail threads. Take your waistband, fold it lengthwise, placing right sides together. Clip or pin in place. Determine the circumference of your skirt relative to your waist circumference. You can have a full covered skirt equal to your waist circumference, or you can leave an opening at the front like I did. Mark the start and end points of your skirt on your waistband. We will leave this section open and unsewn. Sew from one end of the waistband to the opening, and then from the opening to the other end of the waistband. Remember to backstitch before and after the opening. Trim the seam allowances down to 0.25 inch to reduce the bulk. Then turn the waistband right sides out. I'm using a loop turner to help with this, but you can use whatever method works best for you. Push out the corners using a pointed edge object. Press the waistband flat. Also, fold the seams at the opening and press them flat. Take the gathered skirt and place it right sides together against the opening of the waistband, lining up the center notches. Make sure to evenly distribute the gathering across the entire opening. This may take some finessing. Then clip or pin in place. Sew the gathered skirt to the waistband within the seam allowance to hold it in place. When sewing, make sure that the gathers are perpendicular to the waistband. I use my left hand to align the gathered fabric, while the right hand feeds the fabric through the machine. The direction in which you stitch the gathers in place will be how they flow when you wear the skirt. Fold the waistband opening seams together and pin it in place, making sure that the front and back waistband aligns. Top stitch the waistband opening closed from one end to the other, making sure that the front and back waistband are aligned and hasn't slipped out of place. You can take things nice and slow. Press the waistband and the top portion of the skirt ruffles flat and in the direction that you'd like them to flow. And that's it. You're done sewing your skirt overlay. The skirt overlay is elegant, cute, and versatile. You can style it however you like. In my intro, I styled it with pants and a top, and here I'm wearing it over a cocktail dress. You can also use the same fabrics to make yourself a matching top, dress, and/or pants. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you make your own skirt overlay, please tag me. I'd love to see how it turned out. Happy sewing!